Hey, how's it going, Brandon? It's me, Zack, and we're back here with another video today. One of the videos that is going to help you grow as a player. In this video, we are going to be basically going over Darkrai box, and I guess in this case, it's more like there's a bunch of different attackers that you could use. You can use Darkrai Umbreon, or Umbreon Darkrai, sorry, Mega Sableye Tyranitar. You got Hoopa GX, plenty of options to attack within this deck. So the strategy of this deck is meant to kind of overcome exactly what you could do in the game. They're going to try to attack with different Pokemon and try to end the game a bunch of different ways, between using attacks like Greedy Crush or Gigafall GX, using Dark Moon GX, or using Devilish Hands GX. They power up this deck between moving your energies around with Shadow Connection on Weavile GX, powering up energies with Naganadel, or using B-String. So this is what we got for the deck. I'll explain it one by one, and then afterwards I'll explain how your deck can beat it. And in the next video after this, it's going to show exactly what your exact Pikachu Zekrom deck can do against this DarkBox deck. So starting off, how most of these decks that play Stage 1 Pokemon start off, we have a Ditto Prism Star. It uses its Almighty Evolution ability to evolve into any Stage 1 Pokemon. In that case, it's going to try to evolve into a Weavile GX, so they can move their energies around with Shadow Connection, or it's going to evolve into a Naganadel GX, or a Naganadel, not GX by any means, to attach basic energy cards from their discard pile. Darkrai Prism Star is another way that they could get energies into play, so they can use this when they play it down from their hand. They can attach 2 dark energies to it, and that doesn't count as their attach for their turn. They could also move energies with Weavile GX's Shadow Connection, so that you could actually use Abyssal Sleep. They'll do 120 damage, and they will make you double asleep. So not only do you have to flip 1 coin in between turns, you're going to have to flip 2 coins in between turns. So it's definitely one of those things where you got to watch out for. A great way to get around it would be using Escape Board on the Pokemon that was Abyssal Sleeped, or using a switch. Those are great strategies to get around this card. Next up, we got Hoopa. So Hoopa is a great single prize card attacker. For Evil Admonition, you got to be careful of how many Pokemon you have in play with abilities. So be careful with your Jirachi, your Dedenne, your Zeraora, any other Pokemon that you have that have abilities. I think that's basically it for your deck. But this card can do a decent bit of damage against those Pokemon. Mind Shock can just do a simple 80 damage. So that is something you might want to watch out for if your Pokemon is close to getting knocked out. Hoopa GX, kind of a grown-up version of this Hoopa. They can use Rogue Ring to search for any 2 cards that they want out of their deck and put them into their hands. They could do a simple 160 damage with Dark Strike. But the big thing that they want to be using here is after they damage your Pokemon a little bit all over, they can use Devilish Hands to basically spread 180 damage across your board. So they could actually knock out 2 tag team Pokemon at once if there's enough damage in play. Do be careful of that, because their GX attacks in this deck can absolutely end games. And next up is Mega Sableye Tyranitar GX. So if they spread some damage, they can actually get some big knockouts with Greedy Crush. For 5 energies, it does 210. And if they knock out your active GX or EX, but your deck only plays GX Pokemon, they can draw an extra prize card. So if they knock out a Dedenne GX with this, they actually draw 3 prize cards, the same amount as a tag team. If they have 5 energies, they can hit for 250, which will definitely knock out a Pikachu Zekrom GX. But if they have an additional 5 energies attached to it, they can discard the top 15 cards of your opponent's deck as well, so they could try to deck you out, giving them an alternative win con. And before you think 5 energies is a lot, they can B-string their energies onto a Naganadel and use Charging Up and attach for a turn and use Nightmare Star and move all those energies around with Shadow Connection. So that could be absolutely huge for your opponent. Here we have Sneasel. They don't really attack with it. If they went second, they could use Sneaky Smash to discard an energy you have in play. only if they went second and only on their first turn. But this card's really meant to evolve into Weavile GX. Now, you're not really going to use Nocturnal Maneuvers GX. They might use the occasional Claw Slash, but it's really for the Shadow Connection to move the dark energies around however they like. Next up, they have another one of their big attackers here. They have Umbreon and Darkrai GX. They're mostly going to use this card for Black Lance, doing 150 to one of your Pokemon and 60 to another one of your bench GX Pokemon. So they could build up damage to knock out things with Devilish Hands GX, or to do extra damage with Greedy Crush, drawing an extra prize. Alternatively, they can attach, they can have 6 Dark Energies on this Pokemon for Dark Moon GX and just knock out your active Pokemon. So again, be careful with how many Dark Energies that your opponent actually has in play. They can often do a lot of stuff with it. Knocking out energies out of play, trying to play around B-String, those are all great strategies against this deck. The Dedenne GX in this deck, they could actually discard some Dark Energies to get into their discard pile with charging up. And Dedenne Change, as you know, is a great way to draw some cards. Now, the only way they can attack with Static Shock or Tingly Return GX is by you having a Thunder Mountain Prism Star out in play, because it reduces their lightning energy requirements, so they only need 1 energy to use either attack. Now, they're not really going to be using these attacks against you. They're not really worthwhile, but it is something that they can and they might do against your deck. Next up here, we have Poipole. Poipole, again, as a lot of these cards are, they use it to evolve into Naganadel. And they're just going to try to be using charging up. They could use Spit Poison against you, but that would be the least of your worries. Charging up is what they're going to be using to get energies in play to move around with Weavile Shadow Connection. They could occasionally attack with Turning Point, but it's something that they might not necessarily do every single game. Next up here, we have B-String. B-String, they can only play it if you have 3 or 4 prize cards remaining. Search your deck for 2 basic energy cards and attach them to your Ultra Beasts. The only Ultra Beast that they have in this deck would be Naganadel and Poipole. So even if they're not getting a lot of energies with charging up, they can get a lot of energies in play because of B-String. So try to play around their 3 or 4 prize card turns, trying to knock out Pokemon with Tag Bolts, trying to knock multiple Pokemon out at once would be a great strategy against this deck. They play 4 copies of Cherish Ball. The reason why they play 4 copies, they play a lot of GX. They have Hoopa GX. They have Mega Sableye GX. They have 2 copies of Weavile GX, 2 copies of Umbreon Darkrai GX, and 2 copies of Dedenne GX. They got a couple copies of Mysterious Treasure. It could be great to discard a Darkness energy and searching for a Poipole or a Naganadel. And they have 3 copies of Pokemon Communication. It's a card that you play in your deck. They could actually shuffle any of these Pokemon back into their deck and grab any one of these Pokemon back in to their hands. So whichever one they need for the situation, they need to try to get out Weaviles and Naganadel set up as quickly as possible. This version of the deck is a little bit different. It plays Super Scoop Up. So the strategy behind that is they move the energies off the damaged Pokemon, and then they go for a Super Scoop Up to flip a coin and put that back into their hands. It's another way for them to power up more energy in play with Nightmare Star, or to take damage off of one of their tag team Pokemon. So as much as you want to play around things like B-String, if you notice your opponent is playing Super Scoop Up in their deck, you might want to try to focus on knockouts on these Pokemon with Electro Powers. Got a couple copies of Switch, one of the most simple cards in the game. Sometimes they just need to switch. They might have a lot of damage. They might want to attack with something different. They might have a Dedenne in the active position. Whatever the reason is, they want to definitely get those out of the active position. Viridian Forest, they can discard something like a Dark Energy, getting it into the discard pile for charging up and searching their deck for a Dark Energy to attach or to use with Nightmare Star. Remember that you can use Viridian Forest to search out your own lightning energies and potentially discard your lightning energies for Tapu Koko Prism Star. So don't forget about that. Next up is Cynthia, pretty simple shuffle and draw 6 supporter. They got Hapu, so this one's a little bit different. They can look at the top 6 cards of their deck, put 2 of them into their hand, and discard the other cards. Sure, they're hoping that they're discarding dark energies to get into the discard pile for Naganadels charging up, but sometimes the cards are not going to be overly helpful in every single matchup. Next up, we got Lily, a pretty simple draw 6, and if it's your first turn, they could draw up until 8. So it's one of those things where they're just trying to draw some more cards to get set up after playing out their Ditto, playing out their Sneasel, and playing out their Poipole. And this is a bit of a different tech supporter. They can choose a basic dark Pokemon in their discard pile. So their basic dark Pokemon that can ever be in their discard pile would be Hoopa, Hoopa GX, Mega Sableye Tyranitar, Sneasel, Umbreon Darkrai GX. Those are all the ones. So if those are in the discard pile, they could switch it with one of their Pokemon in play, even if it's something like a Dedenne. So it's a great way for them to bring back a Pokemon that was really good before. And last but not least, they do have 11 copies of Darkness Energy. So the strategy that you want to be utilizing when you're playing this matchup is to get your Pokemon set up quick. This deck with all of these different things running can be a little bit inconsistent or slow. You want to knock out basically 2 tag team Pokemon, or you want to be knocking out a tag team, a single prize card, and then a GX Pokemon. So whichever way your game allows you to set up, that seems like a great way to play out this matchup. Beyond that, this deck is basically, it is what it is. There's a lot of attacking options. Just become used to the cards. Your opponent might play a copy of Greninja Zoroark that does extra damage for all the darkness energies they have in play. They could play around with the text in this deck. Don't be too afraid about it. Just make sure that you are knowing what their attacks do and knowing the available cards in this deck. So the next couple games, I will be playing your exact Pikachu Zekrom deck against DarkBox in general. So you'll see exactly how it works out like that. So as always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me anything during our next coaching session, or be sure to ask Ryan, your brother, if you play against this and you're just a little bit more confused. Think it sounds like a great plan going forward. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and be sure to watch the next one to learn exactly how the matchup works out. All right, have yourself a great one, and be sure to watch the next one. Bye.